Hoda Kotb, the woman who, every morning, makes millions of viewers believe that life will eventually be okay, as long as you begin again with a smile. On television, she is warmth itself, a gentle voice guiding America through long days. From her familiar seat on the Today Show, under soft lights and through simple stories, Hoda has become the face people turn to when they need a little hope. Someone who makes everything feel a bit more breathable, even if only for a few brief minutes. But that is only the part the public gets to see. Behind that smile is a life far from as gentle as the way she tells her stories each morning. A woman who has walked through illness when her own body betrayed her, who signed divorce papers when everything once seemed stable, and who has faced time's greatest fear, that some dreams arrive too late, and when you are no longer sure, you can still hold on to them. Hoda Kotb did not step into the spotlight with certainty. She moved through small cities, low-rated newsrooms, and years when her name meant nothing to anyone. There was no sudden breakthrough, no miracle. Only a persistence so intense, it bordered on stubbornness. And it was that slowness that shaped a different kind of person, not glamorous, but irreplaceable. Years later, when people see Hoda on screen and call it positivity, one question remains. How long did it take for someone to learn how to smile like that? And is that smile truly light, or something carefully created to conceal the darkness no one is allowed to see? The overlap between work and personal life in Hoda Kotb's story did not begin when she appeared on television. It had already taken shape in her early years, when the feeling of stability always coexisted with the possibility of having to leave it at any moment. She was born on August 9, 1964, in Norman, Oklahoma, into an Egyptian Muslim family. Her childhood was not tied to a single place. Her family lived in Morgantown, West Virginia, then Alexandria, Virginia. In between were a year in Egypt and periods in Nigeria following her father's work. These relocations were not recorded as dramatic events, but entering new environments, restarting relationships, adjusting communication styles, and adapting to different norms repeated often enough to become a familiar state. Her father, Hoda Kotb, worked in the energy sector. Her mother worked at the Library of Congress. In such a household, education and discipline were inseparable from daily life. Time was kept precisely. Studying was maintained as a long-term obligation, and the way each member adjusted themselves to their surroundings was considered natural. Hoda grew up with her brother Adel and her sister Hala within a structure that held two layers simultaneously. The outside constantly changing, the inside keeping rhythm. There was no place long enough to be called permanent, yet no period entirely out of control. In 1985, when Hoda had not yet fully left university life, her father passed away at the age of 53. The event did not unfold in public, nor did it leave behind a prolonged sequence of developments. It happened concisely, and within the family, and ended a role that had existed steadily for many years. The one who had kept the rhythm behind everything disappeared, without a transition period. What had once been considered a foundation was no longer there. There was no clear sign that Hoda immediately changed direction, but the conditions for making decisions had shifted. There was no longer a point of return, no longer an order waiting in the background. From that moment on, every step had to carry its own responsibility, and the concept of stability was no longer something that could be assumed to last. Before that point, her academic path had followed a clear direction but did not create any sudden leap. She attended Fort Hunt High School in Virginia, graduating in 1982, was elected homecoming queen, and delivered a speech at graduation. Signs of a visible presence within the school environment, yet not tied to a specific career direction. She then attended Virginia Tech, chose a major in broadcast journalism, and graduated in 1986. There, she directly engaged with the process of news production, writing scripts, filming, editing tapes, and going on air. She joined the Delta 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 sorority, living in a structured environment that did not create a predetermined path. Upon leaving school, Hoda did not step into a position waiting for her. There was no specific destination, no standing offer. She entered the job market with what she had been trained in, but the rest had to be found on her own. And from that state, her professional journey began, not from a major opportunity, but from small local stations where everything had to be built again from the beginning. After leaving Virginia Tech in 1986, Hoda Kotb did not walk into a position already waiting. She placed herself into the hiring cycle of local stations, sending out applications, receiving stretches of silence, and then continuing to send them out again. Time extended beyond expectation. The pressure did not come from a single event, but from the absence of opportunity. WX5T in Greenville, Mississippi opened within that context, not as a major breakthrough, but as a starting point sufficient to enter the profession. At WX5T, work was not clearly divided between roles. Hoda directly handled the entire chain of news production, going into the field, filming, writing leads, editing tapes, and going on air. The pace was high and continuous. But what stood out was the collision with the reality of production. Newscasts had to be completed under conditions lacking equipment, lacking staff, lacking time. Small mistakes appeared and had to be handled within the same day. There was no distance between making an error and correcting it. It was in this environment that she began adjusting her way of working, faster, more precise, less dependent on surrounding conditions. When she moved to WQAD in Illinois in 1988, the change was not only in market size. The production process became tighter, with higher standards for visuals and content. What had once been handled flexibly at WXVT now had to meet more specific requirements. Hoda continued to place herself in various field situations, but her approach began to shift. Not only recording events, but selecting details, asking the right questions, and keeping each report structured within a short time frame. The pressure shifted from getting it done to getting it right. At Wink in Fort Myers in 1989, the transition became more evident. The role of weekend anchor placed her in a position of controlling the entire newscast during airtime, where every deviation appeared immediately on screen. At the same time, field work maintained its intensity. As the two forms of pressure existed simultaneously, one demanding stability in front of the camera, the other requiring rapid response in situations that could not be prepared for. Hoda did not separate these two parts but operated them within the same rhythm, adjusting her workflow to stay aligned with broadcast timing. By 1992, when she moved to WWL-TV in New Orleans, the environment shifted in another direction. News was no longer limited to quick daily responses, but began to extend in depth. Reports required continuous follow-up, adding information across multiple days and sources. Hoda did not appear at a single moment, but returned to the same story repeatedly, rechecking details, adjusting the narrative to maintain continuity. Going on air shifted from delivering information to guiding a story that had been constructed over time. Inside the WWL newsroom, pressure no longer lay in speed alone, but in the ability to maintain consistency as a story extended. Each report demanded a different handling, at times staying close to the scene, at times stepping back to see the whole. These adjustments did not happen once, but repeated across each broadcast, requiring her to change how she framed issues, selected images, and concluded a story so that viewers could continue following it the next day. Her name began to appear regularly on New Orleans broadcasts, not tied to a single defining moment, but formed through repetition of work and a consistent approach. The years at WWL did not create an abrupt breakthrough, but they clarified the shift in how she worked, from rapid reaction to narrative control, from handling individual reports to following a longer process. By the time she entered national television in 1998, these elements had become steady enough to continue operating within a larger system where the pressure did not lessen, only changed form. What was formed in New Orleans did not remain confined to a local scope. In 1998, Dateline NBC became the next environment, where the standard was no longer meeting a broadcast deadline, but accuracy, depth, and the ability to maintain the structure of a story that unfolds over time. Hoda Kotb entered NBC as a correspondent, not opening the program, not holding a central position. Her work existed entirely within the content itself, where each report had to stand on its own through the strength of its facts. The nature of the work shifted in ways not easily visible from the outside. A story did not end at the first scene. Some cases extended over weeks, revisited multiple times, each return adding another layer of information. Filming did not conclude when enough footage was gathered, but only when the structure of the story could hold all its data without drifting out of context. In the editing room, interviews were arranged in a more rigorous order. A single sentence placed incorrectly could alter the meaning of the entire piece. The pressure no longer came from airtime speed, but from ensuring that the story remained accurate as it expanded across multiple layers of information. As a correspondent, Hoda did not control the entire program, but she controlled her portion down to the smallest detail. Her questioning shifted depending on the subject. Some interviews could not go straight to the point, requiring her to sustain the rhythm long enough for the subject to open up. Some silences were not cut, but preserved as part of the structure. Her on-screen presence evolved accordingly, less direct narration, more observation, allowing the story to unfold through the voices of those involved. From 2002 to 2008, this body of work began to be recognized through professional awards, not tied to her personal image on screen, but to the types of stories she helped build. In 2002, she received the Edward R. Murrow Award for reporting. In 2004, and the Headliner Award was given for Saving Dane, Adoptees Rage, a report following international adoption cases and their legal consequences, constructed through multiple layers of subjects and documentation. In 2006, the Peabody Award recognized The Education of Ms. Groves, a project tracking the educational journey and systemic issues surrounding a specific student, requiring long-term observation and an uninterrupted approach. Alongside these were Gracie Awards, 2003, 2008, the Headliner Award in 2007, and the DuPont Columbia Award in 2008, all connected to the same type of work. Stories that required time to take shape and could not be assembled through a fixed formula. These awards did not create an immediate shift in position. Within the program's structure, Hoda remained a storyteller, not the opener. But another kind of credibility began to form, not based on visibility, but on the ability to keep a story accurate as it expanded across layers of information. The work was recognized, but it did not come with rapid changes in role. This form of accumulation continued with her into the next phase, where the demand was not only to tell correctly, but to appear in the right place. The work at Dateline NBC built a solid foundation, but in 2007, another direction opened, less predictable. In September of that year, Hoda Kotb stepped into the fourth hour of Today as its first host, a space no longer operating under the logic of investigative reporting, but under the rhythm of live conversation, and where content was not fully pre-produced, and reactions unfolded in real time. At that point, the program's structure had not yet stabilized into a two-host format. Hoda carried the rhythm alone, both leading and adjusting pace within a format that had not yet fully taken shape. The change was not in title, but in presence, from guiding a completed story to sustaining conversations that had no predetermined conclusion. There was no longer an editing layer behind to control everything. Each segment had to form in real time, ending only when the conversation naturally reached its stopping point. In April 2008, Kathy Lee Gifford joined the fourth hour as co-host. From that moment, the structure began to stabilize into a two-person format, and Hoda's position shifted in a way not immediately visible on the surface. She no longer held the entire space as she had at the beginning, but she did not step back either. Her role moved into a different state, responding in real time, maintaining conversational rhythm, and adjusting herself to the person sitting across from her. There was no detailed script to rely on. No time to revise. Every line was delivered as it happened, and it had to be precise enough to keep the conversation moving. Within the two-host structure, Hoda did not dominate the space, but she held the center of its rhythm, the one who regulated pace, who prevented the conversation from falling into prolonged silence, who brought it back when it drifted off course. Some segments extended beyond expectation. Some conversations failed to generate immediate response. In those moments, her handling became decisive, expanding the question, redirecting the topic, or holding a pause just short enough to prevent a break in flow. These elements did not appear as isolated highlights, but accumulated across each broadcast. The audience did not simply see two people talking. Over time, they began to recognize how Hoda maintained the entire flow in a stable state, even when the content itself was not fixed. Her presence did not lie in speaking more, but in keeping everything in motion. Gradually, this way of appearing, not imposing, not withdrawing, constantly adjusting to real-time developments, became the reason viewers returned to the same time slot, not for a specific topic, but for the way a conversation could continue without needing to be fully prepared. From 2010 to 2012, the program won the Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Morning Program. These awards did not come from a single segment, but from the way the entire show functioned, a system in which Hoda played a role that did not place her at the center, yet still required constant stability. And the daily work did not produce obvious climaxes, but accumulated across each broadcast, each conversation, each moment of maintaining rhythm when the program drifted away from expectation. In 2015, the scope of Hoda Kotb's work expanded beyond the familiar frame of morning television. She began hosting a live radio show on SiriusXM's Today channel, airing twice a week, each episode lasting 1 hour. There were no studio lights, no cameras, no visual layers to support the content. The entire program operated through voice and the rhythm of conversation. The topics remained within the realm of everyday life, work, family, familiar situations, but the execution had to change. Each story had to stand on its own through sound. Each transition had to be clear enough for listeners to follow without visual guidance. Pauses were no longer masked by editing, but became part of the program's rhythm. Holding the audience throughout the broadcast depended entirely on how she maintained the flow of conversation, adjusted pacing, and selected details. That same year, another project unfolded in parallel outside the studio, Truly Brave, a music video created with the participation of Sarah Bareilles and Cyndi Lauper, focusing on cancer patients, especially children. Hoda took part in the development of this project in a role centered on connecting content, bringing real-life stories into a different form of expression. The video was not constructed as simple entertainment, but kept its focus on the experiences of patients. From treatment to recovery, captured through real-life footage. The project received a Webby Award in the category of Online Film and Video, Public Service and Activism, an award recognizing digital content with social impact. These two directions of work unfolding at the same time, one on radio, one within digital content, placed different demands, yet both revolved around the same core, holding audience attention without relying on the traditional structure of television. For Sirius XM, it meant sustaining conversational flow in real time. For Truly Brave, it meant transforming personal experiences into content accessible to a wider audience. Elements that had previously appeared in her own personal story did not disappear. They were integrated into her work in a more controlled way, becoming part of projects built with clear intent. Throughout this entire period, Hoda's position within the structure of morning television did not change rapidly. She was not the main anchor, not the face opening the program, but her influence accumulated in another direction. Through daily repetition, through maintaining a steady presence in a space without a fixed script, and through the ability to sustain connection with the audience in content that seemed to lack obvious highlights. These elements did not create an immediate breakthrough, but continued to build, preparing for a larger shift when it eventually arrived. At the end of 2017, within Today itself, a gap emerged in a way no one had time to prepare for when Matt Lauer was dismissed. The news was handled live on air, while the program was still unfolding as it did every day. There was no buffer to separate the event from the content. The announcement was delivered during the opening segment, and the rest of the broadcast had to continue immediately afterward. Hoda was there, in the same studio, as the program shifted into a different state without time for preparation. And in that very space, she was placed into the role of interim co-anchor, not as a pre-arranged promotion, but as a response to keep the program from stopping. The first broadcasts carried a completely different atmosphere from anything before. The content still had to run, but the context behind it had not yet stabilized. Hoda stepped into the central position without a buffer. There was no time to prepare for a new role. No transition period. Every opening segment, every transition, every sensitive topic had to be handled in real time as it unfolded. A small misstep could affect the entire rhythm of the program. The pressure came from multiple directions. The need to maintain on-air stability, and then the attention focused on the position she had just stepped into. Within that state, her presence did not shift toward display. Hoda maintained rhythm in the way she had for many years before, regulating pace, preventing conversations from falling into silence, guiding the program through each segment without creating breaks. But this time, the entire process unfolded under a different level of scrutiny. Every small action was observed, every decision placed within a broader context of the program. At the beginning of 2018, the decision was confirmed. Hoda Kotb became the official co-anchor of Today alongside Savannah Guthrie. This position did not simply fill a gap, but marked the first time the program was led by two female anchors. The change did not require a grand on-air declaration. It existed within the way the program continued to operate under a new structure. Hoda stepped into that role without changing the working method she had built before, but this time, everything took place at the center of the frame. That same year, she was named to Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people. This recognition did not come from a single moment, but from the entire accumulation of work that had preceded it, and from the phase that had just unfolded, and where a temporary position became an official role in a very short span of time. There was no clear dividing line between before and after, only a sequence of events building upon one another, unfolding rapidly enough to leave no space for pause. The momentum of 2017 to 2018 did not stop once the position was confirmed. It shifted into another state, extending through each broadcast. Hoda Kotb stepped into the morning hours of Today as a main anchor, while still holding her role in the fourth hour. Two spaces, two tempos, two different demands, operating within the same day. The morning began when the rundown was already packed early, and every segment was timed down to the minute. Hoda sat at the anchor desk in the first hour with news that required near absolute accuracy, then a few hours later remained in the same studio to shift into a completely different atmosphere. Open conversation, everyday topics, stories that did not follow the structure of hard news. These two rhythms connected within the same morning, without a clear buffer. What the audience saw was continuity. What the work required was the ability to change states while the program was still ongoing. After that, she moved into the fourth hour, the same studio but an entirely different pace. The tight structure of news disappeared, replaced by open dialogue, real-time reactions, and everyday stories that were not predetermined. And the transition between the 2 hours was not about changing roles, but about adjusting presence, from tight control to flexible rhythm, from guiding content to sustaining conversation. These two rhythms did not exist separately, but flowed into each other within a single workday, demanding continuous state shifting without disrupting the program. In 2019, the show won the Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Informative Talk Show Host during the period she co-hosted. This award reflected the entire operational process of the fourth hour, where stability did not come from a single segment, but from the ability to maintain a steady rhythm across years of continuous broadcasts. Alongside television, books published during this period consistently appeared on bestseller lists in the United States, expanding her influence beyond the screen. These books were not separate from what appeared on air, but continued in the same direction. Personal stories, life experiences, elements that were once spoken briefly in a segment were retained and developed within a longer form. The bestseller status did not come from a single title, but repeated across multiple publications, indicating a form of connection not dependent on broadcast time slots. The content was no longer limited to a few minutes on television, but existed independently, able to be revisited, reread, and to sustain influence even without being on air. The pressure did not decrease when the position stabilized. Ratings became a direct measure, tracked over each period. Every small change in content, every adjustment in guests, every segment related to keeping viewers engaged. Alongside that was her role as a representative following the program's earlier crisis. Hoda's image became tied to a period of rebuilding, where stability had to be maintained over a long duration, not within a single moment. The broadcast rhythm extended across many years without stopping abruptly. By 2024, Hoda Kotb proactively announced that she would leave Today after a long period at the center of the program. The decision was made while the show was still operating steadily, not tied to any immediate on-air incident. The announcement appeared within the familiar broadcast frame, delivered in the same way she had maintained for years, direct, clear, without adding an extra layer of drama beyond what was necessary. The broadcasts that followed maintained their usual structure, but the context had changed. Segments continued in their familiar rhythm. The production schedule remained intact. Interviews proceeded as planned. Hoda remained in the central seat, regulating the program in the way she had developed over time. As the difference lay in how time began to be counted down according to the broadcast schedule. Each appearance was no longer just part of a repeating cycle, but also a step closer to a defined ending point. On January 10th, 2025, she appeared in her final broadcast as main co-anchor. The studio, the desk, the familiar segments, all remained unchanged in form. The program unfolded according to the same structure that had operated for years, without a shift in rhythm. After the broadcast ended, that position was left for a new phase of the program. This ending did not stand apart from what had come before. There was no abrupt break, no separation marked by a sharp change. It was simply a long broadcasting cycle reaching its stopping point after being sustained continuously for many years within the same time slot, under the same mode of operation. What unfolds on air each morning follows a steady rhythm, but Hoda Kotb's personal life does not move along the same straight line. Relationships begin and end at different times, not forming a complete narrative, but leaving behind disconnected segments, enough to reveal change, yet not enough to be contained within a simple definition. In 2005, Hoda Kotb married Berzis Kanga. At that time, her work still revolved around reports at Dateline NBC, with a stable pace that had not yet placed her at the center of morning television. The marriage took place during a period when many things were still forming, with nothing truly fixed. In 2007, that trajectory was interrupted in a way that could not be delayed. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. The treatment followed a clear sequence: examinations, identification of the tumor, surgical removal, reconstruction, post-operative monitoring. There was no longer flexibility in the schedule. Everything had to be arranged around the body. In the days before surgery, work commitments were interwoven with medical appointments. After the operation, recovery time had no stable form. Pain, fatigue, follow-up visits, and continuous monitoring of medical indicators. Part of this process was recorded and broadcast on Today, footage from the hospital room, returns to the clinic, post-treatment examinations. Not the entirety, but enough for the audience to see a body going through treatment, no longer in a normal state. And during that period, work did not disappear completely, but had to step back to make room for treatment. Previous plans were interrupted. Filming schedules no longer followed their original structure. Returning to television did not happen immediately, but in stages, reappearing on air, participating in shorter segments, then gradually returning to a familiar working rhythm. When she returned, this experience was not separated from her work. It appeared directly in conversations, in cancer awareness programs, in the way she chose content to bring on air. In 2008, the marriage ended. No single event was presented as the sole cause, but the timing coincided with another shift. She began co-hosting the fourth hour of Today. One part of her personal life closed, while another opened on television, with a higher level of presence than before. These two processes unfolded close together in time, not entirely separate, and together created a new state, where work and personal life began to overlap more visibly. In 2013, she began a relationship with Joel Schiffman. There was no rapid sequence of public announcements. The relationship unfolded alongside a period in which her career was gradually moving toward the center. As the morning show became a familiar space for audiences, her personal life also began to appear within it, not separate, not entirely hidden. That stories about her personal life were woven into conversations, appearing between other topics, not occupying the entire duration, but enough to create a steady presence. Becoming a mother came later, in a way that was not part of initial plans. In 2017, she adopted her first daughter, Haley Joy. 2 years later, Hope Catherine became the second member of the family. These changes did not occur outside of work, but were brought into the very space where she appeared every day. Moments related to adoption, reflections on motherhood, were not separated into a standalone narrative, but existed within the same flow of the program. The role of motherhood did not replace her work, but began to occupy a clear portion of how she structured her life. In 2019, she announced her engagement. 3 years later, in 2022, the relationship ended. There was no dramatic peak reconstructed in the media. The decision was shared on air, within the same familiar space, and remained there. Their roles shifted toward co-parenting. A relationship changed form, not disappearing entirely, but no longer holding its original structure. In recent years, another development emerged within the family when her daughter faced a chronic health condition. In 2023, Hope was hospitalized for nearly 2 weeks, an interruption that did not unfold on air, but was enough to alter how time was structured in daily life. By 2025, Hoda Kotb confirmed that her daughter had type 1 diabetes, a condition without a clear endpoint, requiring continuous monitoring of blood sugar and the use of insulin. A caregiving is not tied to fixed time slots. It extends through the entire day and night, with checks that can occur at any moment, even when everything else has stopped. Schedules that were once stable, broadcast times, editorial meetings, travel, began to adjust to a different rhythm, one in which presence cannot be replaced by remote arrangement. The impact of this is not expressed through a single decision, but through a series of small adjustments accumulating over time. Time is reallocated, schedules shift, on-air presence no longer maintains the same density as before. Work does not disappear, but it no longer holds absolute priority. Within that context, the decision to leave today does not appear as a separate ending point, but as the result of a process that had already been unfolding, when what could once be postponed could no longer be delayed, and the center of life shifted toward family in a way that could not be reversed. After January 10, 2025, when Hoda Kotb stepped away from her familiar position on Today, the change did not unfold as a stop, but more like a shift in the axis of how time was used. Mornings no longer began in early editorial meetings, no longer revolved around countdown clocks before going on air, no longer consisted of segments flowing continuously for hours. Instead, a different rhythm emerged, slower, yet demanding a continuous presence in another way. At home, beside her 2 daughters, so her days now revolve around the schedules of Haley Joy and Hope Catherine. School drop-offs, care, and health monitoring are no longer fragments inserted between work as before, but have become the central structure of the entire day. Especially when one of her daughters must face a chronic health condition, daily life is forced into deeper adjustments. Medical appointments, days requiring close observation, stretches of time spent staying by her side instead of moving between filming locations. These tasks do not create visible images in the media, but they occupy the majority of everyday reality. The workspace has not disappeared, but its form has changed. She still maintains connections with NBC, occasionally returning for programs or special projects, no longer tied to a fixed broadcast schedule. These appearances do not repeat daily, but occur under specific circumstances. When the content calls for it, when time allows, when her presence carries meaning within a particular context. Alongside that, another direction has taken shape outside of television. In 2025, Hoda began developing the Joy 101 platform, including an app, website, live events, and regular newsletters, focusing on topics such as breathing, sleep, focus, and balance in daily life. This work does not operate on a broadcast schedule, does not follow a fixed time slot, but requires a different kind of presence, building content at its own pace, maintaining connection with audiences through multiple formats, and developing a space not dependent on a studio. The mornings once defined by studio lights are now replaced with quieter stretches of time, but this is not a complete departure from work. The shift lies in this: from a system that required daily public presence to a structure where that presence is redistributed, partly within the family, partly within projects without fixed schedules, and partly in unannounced returns. There is no clear boundary between working and not working, only a different way of using time, where work no longer occupies the entire space, but has not disappeared from it either. What remains is not a clearly announced new schedule, but the way she has restructured her center of gravity. Work still exists, but no longer dominates the entire space. Family is no longer outside the frame, but becomes the place that determines how she uses time each day. And within that shift, there is no clear boundary between before and after. Only a different rhythm of life, where what once had to wait until after the broadcast is now placed first. What Hoda Kotb leaves behind does not lie in a specific title, but in a path that can be traced. From small local stations, where work was built through each newscast completed under limited conditions, to Dateline NBC, where credibility did not come from visibility, but from the ability to keep a story accurate as it expanded across layers of information, and then to Today, and where she stepped into the center during a period when the program had to recalibrate after internal disruption. These three layers do not stand apart. They connect, each retaining something from the previous: journalistic accuracy, control of content, and stability in front of the public in real time. Within the morning hours, what is preserved does not lie in a single moment, but in the way a program moves through disruption without losing its rhythm. When the old structure no longer holds, stability does not come from preserving form, but from sustaining flow each day. Her presence in that period was not performative, but existed in maintaining the system's continuity, stable enough for viewers to return, flexible enough to adapt to what was changing. Her image is tied to a way of working that does not separate personal life from professional work. Stories about family, illness, and motherhood do not remain outside the screen, but appear within it, becoming part of the shared content. This does not always create dramatic peaks, but accumulates over time, forming a different kind of connection, where the audience does not only follow a program, but follows a person moving through the changes of her own life. The books she published, the projects related to cancer awareness, her appearances outside television, all continue to expand her influence in a direction not dependent on a fixed position. What remains is not a role, but a form of connection built over many years, where content is not separate from the person behind it. And when the morning hours no longer hold her in that familiar position, the story does not end with someone leaving the screen. It opens another question. When the daily rhythm of appearance has ended, what continues to exist beyond the frame? The habits formed through work, or the part of life that has always been there alongside it, but has never been fully seen?